Thank you for coming. I'm George Lama. I'm the Vice Chair of the Historical Commission. Julie McAbee, the Chair, is not able to make the meeting today. This is to formally advise that as required by General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 6, 2021. The Yarmouth Historical Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 17th, 2022 at 10 a.m. in the hearing room, Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided above. Welcome to this special public meeting of the Yarmouth Historical Commission on this Thursday, March 17th at the Yarmouth Town Hall located in South Yarmouth, Massachusetts. The meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 92 of the Yarmouth Town Bylaws. The intent of this bylaw is to protect and preserve historic properties by encouraging their owners to seek alternatives to demolition. We are here today to discuss a proposal for the demolition of all structures located at 181 to 183 River Street in South Yarmouth. The Yarmouth Historical Commission determined on February 17th that a portion of the main house on this property is significant, and there is subject to a possible 180-day demolition delay. Today's hearing is simple and informal. The owner and/or owner's agent will come forward to the table and make his or her presentation. After questions and comments from the commission members, the public will be given an opportunity to ask questions, make comments, or voice any concerns. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak to please step up to the table and begin by clearly stating your name and where you live for the record. After this public meeting, the commission will have 10 days in which to make the determination of whether or not to impose the 180-day delay. To make this determination, the commission will take into careful consideration all information provided by the applicant and the public, as well as our own research and observations. In considering whether to impose a demolition delay, the commission will consider any efforts by the owner or owner's agents to preserve and reuse the oldest section of the structure, either as a guest house or appendage to the new construction, or to relocate the oldest portion of the building to another site where it could be preserved. Advertising the availability of the building for movement to another property can be accomplished through local media. Advertisement of the structure for salvage materials for reuse can preserve some elements of the building. In addition, photo documentation can create a strong local record of the building's components and historic value. We would like to thank you in advance for your cooperation. Now, I would like to turn the meeting over to the applicant and his agent for their presentation.
Good morning, James Quirk for the applicant. After we met the last time on this matter and I listened to the information provided, I did some research myself on the back history of this property. And there's an unusual situation here that we have a land court registration around the turn of the 19th century, which is fairly substantial. And in looking at the records of the town, there is information that the buildings that are on this property were created first in 1905, And then one of the structures was created in 1880. We do not have any information as to the earliest structure, but the town records did provide information that we could rely upon. You can see with the registration case, and you have some of the documents yourselves in your own file, that relates to a number of plans. The way that the land court works is when they provide plans that become part of the record for titles, they get a number and they go by the A, B, C, and so forth for any kind of subsequent plan. So you have plans that start off in 1909, I believe. Let me just get my plan here. The A plan, the B plan, and the C plan. You have them in your record. The A plan was created in 1918, and it shows two structures. That's 7216A. The second plan, the B plan, was not created until 1990, and that plan shows 3 buildings. But the C plan was created in 1995, and what they did was divide the piece of property into 2 lots, as previously it was on 1 lot. The other thing about this is that the property fronts on South Street and River Street. And we've had information, we talked about the information that there's elements of this building that are not in good shape. The building was clearly not all constructed at the same time. And my client has agreed that if the board is interested, that we will ask the commission to come out to the property and decide which portions of the property are historically significant, and that we will separate the significant portion of the property from the remaining property that will be demolished, and we will put it aside. My client's willing to do advertising so that if there's somebody that's willing to take this and incorporate it in another property or make it a sole source structure on its own, we'd be glad to do that. We also have indicated, or my clients indicated to me, that since there are parts of this building and the interior that the commission is interested in, that those parts could be removed as well and preserved. And if you want to create a historic record, we have no problem with having a historic record of what's going on here. I think it does the best for both situations. It's an attempt to preserve what may be a very old structure, and at the same time allows my client to move forward with his project.
Thank you, Mr. Quirk.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilmore?
This will be 1 year that I've owned this property as of April. So it's been a long haul here, and part of it COVID, part of it just trying to get some things done. And as you know, I had no idea there was any historical value to this house. And before I went to this committee, I had a couple amateurs come out and look at the property for historical value. And they're saying, "Oh, Joe, you've got this wood, you got this, you got that." And I went out, made 20 or 30 calls, got a couple people to come in and take a look at it. I said, "Are you interested in, removing the boards or removing the floors or removing something that you might be interested in that's historic?" Because I personally don't know. I don't know. That's not my expertise. And I talked to my builder, Chris Kenny, who you all know, and I said to him, I said, "It'd be a shame to tear this house down," not knowing at the time that, I had to go to historic and get a permit to do this and all this stuff. And I figured I'd just come in and tear the house down because it's not livable. And I said, it'd be a shame if there's something here of some value, historical significance, and to tear the house down. I just had a bad feeling about that. So I did have these people come in, and these people, actually 2 of them showed up, and they went through the house, and they said, well, by the time we remove the boards and by the time we do this and da 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 da, and I said, look, I don't care about the money. I said, if you want that and you want to take it out, you can. Nobody picked up on it for me. So I did make an effort from the very beginning, and nobody seemed to be interested. I had a couple friends that wanted to come in and said, hey, look, there's some pictures there. There's some things on the interior of the house that I'd like. And I said, go help yourself, And so that's where I'm coming from. I do have some feelings about the house, but it's not livable. I have to do what I got to do. But it's been a year. I'm really under pressure from the bank because nothing's happened, and I'm getting a lot of heat. And I need to do something fairly quickly. Although this is not like if I was given permission to tear the house down, I'd go down tomorrow and tear it down. It's going to be, I'm a month and a half out before I can do anything. So that gives me a fairly significant amount of time to get recommendations from this board and to either find somebody to come in and do it or decide if we can do anything, separating anything that's significant in the house. That's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. So now that we've finished this part of the public meeting, I would like to, as indicated on the agenda, open it up to question and comments from the Historical Commission. Sam, would you like to go first, please?
Sure. There's a few things that you mentioned already that I would like to see happen. One of them being a thorough photo documentation of the house as it stands before any demolition process is gone through. And the other thing that I believe you mentioned was having the Historic Commission come back out to the house and determine what is the most historic structure within the house and what should be sort of brought forth to be preserved in one way, shape, or form. And I agree with both of those comments. I think both of those are important things to go ahead with. At the same time, I think we also need to look into, you had mentioned possibly moving whatever the Historic Commission has deemed historic of the house, correct?
If I can do it, I have to leave that to Chris Kenny, if it construction wise, because they're saying if we lift anything up or try to move something, I don't know how much, there's not much there, but if we do it, it's going to collapse.
I was going to offer a suggestion is it realistic to bring in somebody who has experience moving historic buildings? There are a few such people that I know of, not offhand, but there's a few, I think, on the Cape that have those kind of experiences and have done renovations of antique houses, and in some cases picked them up, rotated them, moved them 10 feet this way, 10 feet that way, whatever. That might be something that would be worthwhile to look into, is seeing if somebody has experience doing that kind of thing if you're going to go ahead and move one of the original sections of the
Whose
building.
expense would that be at?
I couldn't tell you.
So if it's at my expense, I'm not willing to do that. I've got a lot of work to do that property. And again, a delay on this house is really going to put me in a very bad situation with the banks. And I'm probably because, excuse my ignorance, you're seeing it in your head, and I'm trying to see it in my head on a construction kind of view. So please excuse me. But if somebody comes in and they can do that, are you suggesting I move it to another piece of my property?
That was how I understood the writing, that you would set it aside for somebody to possibly take it for preservation.
That's okay if somebody wanted to take it, but you got to understand there's a lot of excavation that has to be done on this property also. So really, even though there's a lot of land, there's not a lot of room because of all the trees and stuff that are in that property, and the excavation and the foundations and all that stuff they got to do. Where am I going to put it? But I have no problem with trying to put it someplace within a reasonable amount of time that they could come out and pick it up. I have no problem with that.
Karen, did you have a
No, I
comment?
think that we got there.
Great. Okay.
I
Sam?
think that's all for me for right now.
Okay, great.
Excuse me, I have one more question. Sam, you mentioned documentation, photo documentation. Help me out with this, all right, because I don't understand. Can that be done by a drone?
The exterior, yes. The interior is also pertinent to photo document as well.
That's why I asked the question. Okay, all right, yeah.
So it would be first floor, second floor, every aspect of the house so that
And
people could
how would
use
you
it.
want that done? Just photos?
That could be either done by a volunteer from the commission or by you or some combination of their.
I'm good with it.
Thank you. Melanie Barron, comments, please?
Yes, thank you very much for taking the time and getting
for
up
having
so
me.
early. I guess I'm listening and I'm also looking at Mr. Quirk's letter of March 7th. It says he, meaning you, would attempt to separate the structure and move it to the side of the property. So I'm not sure whose responsibility we're talking about. It's perhaps that I'm not hearing correctly.
I think what you're getting at, let me ask the question, that the expense of moving it to the side of the property, yeah, we're tearing, if we're gonna be tearing down the house, I don't see that as a big problem for me to take care of that. But it all depends, because in my head, I'm trying to figure out, what are you talking about? How much can we save?
Right.
That's the big thing. Chris will have to answer that, and can we save exactly what you think is significant? We're sure gonna give it the best effort, and then we're gonna move it to the side. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'd take care of that. But as long as we can save it, we don't know if we take it out or what it is that you want, that you think significant. If it breaks apart, and then what do we got,
I guess again, if I may, that I'm hearing two things. One is that there was a suggestion, at least, that it be, with due respect, with Chris's experiences with new buildings and with creating ground up, brand new buildings, so that I would think that we would want somebody with the experience that has just been mentioned by Sam to make that decision rather than Chris. I know that Chris has to be involved with
Yeah.
the rest of the demolition and understanding what that means, but I think we should take care about who decides how to do it.
Well, Melanie, I prefer to take care of it myself, because there's a liability issue here also
Okay.
that I got to be very careful of. All right. Somebody else comes out from the outside, wants to take the piece out and stuff like that. So that's another issue I got to be really careful of. People want to come in and they want to do things, there's always a liability. They trip over a pipe or a curb, or, that's what I got to be real careful of. And so we have to monitor that. And again, I personally would instruct Chris, as much as we can do ourselves, we can control that issue, instead of somebody coming out and breaking it apart and taking it out themselves. That could be an issue too.
Mhm.
So, there's cobwebs to everything,
Right.
but we will, never broke my word to anybody. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I will. And, but how much and what it takes to do that, Chris has got the experience.
I guess I would say, if you're comfortable with that, Sam's suggestion was something asking for consultation with somebody who's done this kind of work with a historic house. I don't know if Chris,
If that person came out and he said, according to the board, I want this and this and this, and Chris is there, yeah, we can do this. Oh, no, geez, we really can't because of this. I would leave it up to them. Would that be all right?
Karen?
Just, if I can make a suggestion,
Sure.
because I
Mhm.
think it's hard to know until you're on the site
I agree.
and looking at the building to really understand what's what. And so I think two things. I think, I heard the commission's invited back out to have a better look at the site. Maybe you want to coordinate that with some photo documentation at that same time. But maybe we can find some historic preservation person to come out. And I think Sarah Korjeff, I can't speak for her schedule, and she was unable to attend the meeting today, but I think Sarah might be able to put us in touch with someone. Maybe we just have another site visit where, Chris is there as well, and we have more dialogue about what needs to stay and how.
And I'm good with that, because like I said, a 6-month delay would kill me. if I was talking to Chris, I said, Chris, tearing down this house, how much time do we have? How much can we allow the commission to, fill us in on what they want to do? And he said, it's going to be a while, but he says, I don't tear the houses down until I get a permit to build the other house. So that could be a month to a month and a half. So there's some room there. And I won't touch the house until you people look at it. You have my word on that.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Karen. Good suggestions.
I think Sam has his hand up.
I just wanted to add one thing onto what Melanie said and one of your concerns with somebody independent coming out. Some of the people that I have heard of have their own business. So I believe having their own business to come out would take care of that liability. It wouldn't be like like an individual off the street
Okay.
walking in to look
Yeah.
around. It would be somebody who has a business, who's done this kind of work and probably has the liability insurance as
That's
well.
a good point.
It's a great point.
You're right. They would. They would.
Thank you. Bob, comments, please?
Good morning.
Morning, Bob.
A couple things. I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Quirk that you don't believe the house is older than 1880?
No, what I said was that in doing the research, there's an indication that in 1895, they listed a structure in the deed itself, but before that, or after that, they didn't list a structure. But the other thing too is in looking at the town records, there's an indication that in section 1 of the map, that the structure was built in 1905 with a living area of 3,516 square feet. And then the second building on section 1 of the plan was an 1880 building with living area of 1651. And then there was a third building in 1952, which is off to the side, at least as to the town historic records that I reviewed.
Okay, so we have 2 deeds, if you'd like to see them, and a map which relates to the 1847 T-chart survey map of South Yarmouth.
And I think that all of that's in the packet, Bob.
All that is in the
Yeah, I've
packet.
seen it, and I
And they both the 1896 and the 1837 deed refer to dwellings on the property.
well, it's certainly the 1895 does. I
Well,
think in
so
reading
does-
1896, I didn't see that on the.
1837, a certain piece of land situate in Yarmouth together with dwelling house thereon standing.
I understand, but that's, and all I'm trying to say is that we've got that information, and then we got town information that's inconsistent with that information. So there may have been a house that was lost. There may still be the same house in the portion. I don't know that, but the records are not consistent in terms of the information as to the structures themselves.
In relation to the oldest structure or part of the house, I would say that the way these things are normally done is that a preservation type builder would dismantle it. And it is my guess that some of that building is peg and post and would come down as such into the flat and be put to the side. That's normally the way that would be done, not with a machine shovel pulling it down and just destroying everything. And there are those kinds of people that do that, that have their own business and are fully insured. It was my understanding that you intended to do something like that via the letter from Mr. Quirk.
Well, Bob, you just told me something I didn't know. And yeah, it's exactly how I looked at it. They come in, they tear it down, but if they could take it apart like that and leave it to the side, that would be the perfect scenario. Really would be.
Yeah, it's not like they would try and move the house fully made and try
Yeah.
and move it somewhere
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
what I'm
not,
afraid of. You put some stress on and cracks and stuff like that,
yeah.
You're educating me as we go along, Bob.
Well, I've actually had a few experiences with that. So given the fact that that you're willing to do that, and maybe open it up to the public for them to possibly take, because that would be the only thing that would be left from the structure. And the part that we're talking about is that it's just what would be considered the full cape part, the part that faces the river has two large picture windows, which used to be smaller windows. And then I guess in the 50s or so, they were taken out, back to the kitchen and across the back, including the interior stairs. And we believe that the back stairs was once on the interior. And then when they built the back structure off to the left of the house, they probably moved the stairs to the back. But it would be that either side of the front stairs going up in the main part of the house. That would be the oldest structure. If you look at the
There's something I can pull
no,
up,
it's
Bob,
the
that's
it's
helpful?
yeah, it's the
Well, Bob, you'd come back out and we could line it up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That would be a big help.
would be that where the arrow is right there. Move it in right there. That rectangular structure right there. And my guess is that that's kind of separated by a stair. And my guess is that the original structure there would have been a half cape, would have been the left side of the building with the stairs on the right. And then the area to the right of that would have been built some maybe 40 or 50 years later. Because people didn't have a lot of money. They built, most of the houses in South Yarmouth along the river were built as half capes and then expanded from there.
Oh, okay.
So that's just everything in back of
Right.
this is the front porch
Right.
that faces, the river would be down here, just
Every-
for the public.
Everything else there is add-on, and I don't think it's extremely historic.
Sam?
The other question I had was the interior of the house. Some of the stuff looks old to me. You know what I mean? And are there people the people I got evidently weren't the right people to call, evidently. And what I'm trying to say to you is I don't care about the remuneration of this, like money. I wanted to know if somebody else could come in. We'll have a month and a half or how long it takes to have somebody come in. And if there are other stuffs interior of the house that could be extracted with little or no effort on my part, I actually would be very happy about that. And I just don't know who to call.
Sam?
I'd like to add a kind of a question and a comment onto what you just said. If we look at the plan up here, one of the things that I do believe, based on the old photos that I found, is the right-hand portion, the two squares, those two, and the porch down in front. That, I believe, was all a fairly modern addition, probably from the 50s or 60s. So my personal view is none of that is historic. But the rear section on the left-hand side
Yeah.
may not be qualified as a historic building, but I can tell from some of the old photos and land plans that it is quite old. And if that section was to be torn down, that might be a good section to salvage timbers, doors, frames, windows.
Yeah, I heard the doors were.
Any of that kind of
yeah.
stuff is in there. So when that comes down, that kind of, even if it's not a historical structure, any old components and old growth wood is saved for other reuses in other houses or made available to anybody who would like the stuff.
If somebody would like to do that, I mean, that would give me a piece of a mind. So when they go and they destroy it, I'm not destroying something that has some significant value to people who are into this. You know what I mean? I wouldn't know, but when I walk around, I go, man, this stuff is old, and some people love it. I've seen it. One of my friends down there, he came in and he says, hey, can I have this? Can I have this door? And I says, help yourself. You know what I mean? And he puts it in to his boathouse. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things like that if I knew some people, I just don't know who to call, who to ask. All right, you got a month and a half to do it. Take what you need. I mean that. I would love that.
Can you go to the 1918 plan?
Tell me which, are those the
The
first, A, B,
That
or
one.
C?
that one right there.
Okay.
That's the 1918 plan. So I can see it here. Make sure that's the right
I
one.
can try to make it bigger on the
Yep.
screen, Bob, if that's a help.
Yep.
I have,
So you can see that structure nearest the water is only that
Oh, yeah.
cape
Yeah.
structure and the one in the back with two porches.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that was the original part of the house at the turn of the century. And my guess is that the half cape part of that house is extremely old. It's probably 100 years older than that plan shows. And probably a second part of that house to make it what they call a 5-panel house, 4 windows and a door, would have been added on later on.
Hmm.
And that back piece later on. And then it looks like the barn structure was there at that time. So that, just for clarification on what we think is the most historic part of the house.
Okay.
I'd like to add one comment, something that had slipped my mind, but I think is pertinent. All of our discussions have been about the main house. I think and when we last did our site visit, we also did not go inside the barn. And some of the old photos that I have found show that barn was on the property at least through the early 1900s. I think that would be pertinent to consider for not necessarily a historic structure, but historic materials and possible salvage out of that as well.
Sam, I'm chuckling because before you said that, you must have read my mind. I said, I was going to say this over. I said, look, I got another house there. And there's a couple things inside you might want to see. Because I even found it very impressionable, Done. So when you look at, you come out of that house, I was going to invite you to take a look at the other house too. Because I think there's like some old timbers and the fireplace and stuff like that I think that some people would really like it, and I kind of get a kick out of the barn more than I do the house. Yeah, without a problem.
We're not visible.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
I was just asking Bob, because I certainly know and respect, and Sarah did take the time to do the site visit with us and wrote a memo. One of the suggestions that she made was to incorporate some of the significant historical elements into the new design, which would, I'm trying to, because I've looked at your plans, Chris, and I don't know how or if that's appropriate, but I wanted to make sure we paid attention to what Sarah suggested, and don't know the implications of it. So I guess I'm asking both to acknowledge it as well as ask it as a question.
Melanie, I'll answer that. Take the design. You got to know Chris.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of these guys that go, and Bob showed me a window that's in just outside of that kitchen. You know, nobody's getting that. I want that window. I already told Chris about it. And Chris will take things that he thinks that he can use. And what he'll do is he'll put them in a new house in certain places. You know, that was kind of a, let's design it, let's get it done. But as far as taking stuff over, I've already picked some stuff out already out of that house.
And
I don't know if what she meant was to physically take them or just in terms of the design to reflect what she considered historic.
I mean, I can't speak for Sarah. I'd imagine it's both.
Okay.
And what I was going to suggest is maybe when we go back for the site visit, assuming that's the direction we're going in, maybe you point out too, Joe, some of the items like, you know, I know the kitchen window you're talking about because I remember it. But if there's
That's
other-
Bob's fault.
Yeah, if
He's
there's
the
other
one that turned me
things.
onto it.
But maybe we kind of make note of those, that they're going to be incorporated into the new structure.
So as we kind of go along, we start building the other house, you know, and believe me, this house is going to look very capey. I want it very capey. And I was trying to get that design colored with the white shingles that I want and stuff. Would have really made a big impression, but I called the guy and he said, oh, I can't do that. I don't have the printed. I said, well, can you put some damn shingles on it so it looks better? I said, because I was thinking of you, Melanie. He went, whoa, you know, so we can do that.
Just a comment. On your rear elevation, the side that faces the river, you've got good elements of a Greek revival architecture here. And
Is this, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is this the
no,
one more?
no,
This one?
Damn.
down right there.
So the riverfront side?
That's it.
Okay.
The columns that hold the peaks, the ones that are not gambrel, yes. If they could be
Yeah, I know exactly what he's going to ask
a
me.
little wider. And so the Greek revival is columns and pedestals. Okay, that is the look of Greek revival, which a lot of the Bass River area has that, because that's a design that took place somewhere between 1830 and say 1870, was a big design element down there. And the more you can accentuate that look facing the river would be good. You've got it there now.
Bob, do you know why we did that? And if you look at, I wish I had the colored picture of the front of the house. It's really very Cape looking. And it has the gambrel. The reason we didn't do the gambrel in the back through advice of this construction interior guy or exterior guy was that we got more room into the bedrooms by not going gambrel. That was where we did the A.
Right.
So if you kind of give, you know what he's talking about,
The
Chris?
gambrel is actually a design that came into it's an old design, but didn't come here until later, like in the 1900s,
Okay.
to expand the house upstairs.
Yeah.
As opposed to a dormer, they would put in a gambrel.
Right.
What Bob's just saying is accentuate the corner posts.
Oh,
Yeah, you've
okay.
got 4 of them
Yeah, extent,
there. Actually, you've got more. You got some on the gambrel too, but they're shorter.
Is that a tough thing to do, Chris?
no, it's just.
It's trim.
Trim.
Okay.
It's just trim.
Thank you.
Probably actually look better.
And I like the fact that you kept all the windows in the back the same style, 6/1 in most of the individual windows. Because the front of the house isn't going to be seen by anybody. Matter of fact, it's a real, for the record, it's a real shame that this house was not in the Bass River Historic District. I think because it was never seen. The people
Correct.
who actually did this survey probably never saw the house. And it's a shame because on this 1846 map, there's only one other house on this map by 1847.
I don't think they cleaned the brush since 1847.
They might not have.
It took my guys.
They might not have. So,
And the trees, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, God,
so anyhow, those are just some comments.
thanks for the
Sam?
advice.
This is just a curiosity. Have you considered keeping part of the original house and creating it as an outbuilding on your new building or as an extension off the new building?
No. No. I actually want a house half the size of this.
Mm.
And the problem with putting a small house there, it would look like a garage on that land. And Chris is the one thing I get something, I got a big family anyhow, but he said, you got to get something bigger to fill that lot up, you know? And I mean, I could have taken this property and they've already sold off one particular lot out front on South Street. That belonged to them. That was part of this land.
Mhm.
Then they went on River Street as a subdivided lot. I could subdivide this thing and that's not what I'm into it for. You know, I want to preserve it. I like all the land. I like the driveway going through with the trees. I want it to really be special. And a couple of guys said, why don't you subdivide it, put 3 houses on it? I said, oh, God, how can you say such a thing, you know? So when I came out and I looked at the original house, I was like, wow, until I walked inside. I really love that porch. I love it that it's just off the seawall. If you remember when you came out, there were 3 chairs there. Because a friend of mine gave me those chairs and I just sat out there like this. And I go, maybe I could live in the porch, you know? I really love the house, but it's disastrous. I can't do anything with it. So that was my feeling.
That's why we did that porch area there for them. Same type of
That
porch.
section where the posts are, Bob, is recessed because of the wind. So we recessed it in. How far in is it? I don't know, 8-10 feet, but it's recessed in. So it's like an.
You have a covering?
Yeah. So because the guy who designed this, it was a construction guy, he says, look, that wind coming off the Bass River, you want to be recessed, you know?
That's a good feature, actually.
Mm.
Actually sit out there in the drizzle.
Mm.
And that-
Shown on that site plan right there. Yeah, you're right there.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comments of the members? Julie McAbee did send an email with her regrets, and I'd like to read her comments into the record. I have gone over the meeting materials and have also watched the meeting where the property was discussed. This is in reference to our meeting, last meeting. And if the commission decides to vote on the demo delay, I am in favor of the proposed conditions offered by the homeowner to move a section of the home. And I would like also to add a condition that the property be photo documented prior to any demolition / moving, as offered as a suggestion by Sarah Kojak. So that, Melanie, reinforces, your comments that were previously made, and these are the comments of our chair, Julie McAbee. So I would just like to summarize and thank you for your consideration of this very historic property. Your fellow neighbors, your fellow Yarmouth citizens, and posterity will thank you, because the discussion we have today is the core hope of the demo deletion law, that we sit back and have conversations like we have today, to share, to make sure that this is an important decision, Mr. Gilmore, for you and your family, as it is for us in the commission. So thank you. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being creative, and we appreciate that.
And I'd like to state, I'd like to thank the board. I actually did have a wonderful time the day we walked through. I think you could tell. A lot of things that I didn't understand. I have a different perspective on historical now, instead of saying, oh, that's old, let's get rid of it, you know? And you people were wonderful, wonderful board to deal with. Thank you for the consideration. And you built a passion in me to talking to you people about, well, you know, there could be some important things here that we could do. And I appreciate you coming out and taking a look at it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to invite public comment?
Yes, that's next. Thank you. So the next agenda item, now that we've completed our comments here, is to request any public comments. And we have, you know, a member who has logged in, Ms. Briggs. I'm not sure if you wish to make any comments. If you do and want to put your hand up, we can bring you in.
I saw something move.
She's muted.
So Ben, I think if,
To get it open now. Okay, hello. I gather you can hear me now. And I'm Ellen Briggs, founder and president of Protect Our Past, which is a nonprofit focused on saving historic properties on the Cape and Islands. And I've listened to all that you've said. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the owner, who is obviously listening to all of what is being said about the historical value of that property. So will you confirm that you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't, somehow I'm not seeing you. All right, so my first thought is, why didn't you know that was an historic property? This is not meant to make you feel bad, but I just feel like the responsibility of the realtors and the community, whoever you interacted with when you were considering and looking at that property, should have opened your eyes earlier. It wasn't a year later and you're just finding out some very important things. And you've been very receptive, and I'm so grateful for that. But I just wonder why someone hasn't told you beforehand how valuable that property is as a piece of history for Yarmouth. I mean, it goes back to the early 1800s, and even early 1900s is historic today. So we forget time is passing quickly. And then so a 1918, 1920 house is also historic, and it tells the story of the Cape. And our concern is that the historic fabric of the Cape is dissolving with the destruction of these historic properties. The streetscapes are changing. We're becoming the Hamptons. I hear this all the time. And I have to say, I can't argue with that. And I don't want to be the Hamptons. I think we need to be Cape Cod and what it's known for. After all, it's one of the most historic portions of this country. And it's slipping away. These half capes, full capes are all just disappearing. So again, I just don't want it to be anywhere USA. So my first point is, too bad you didn't hear all this earlier. My second is that the woods that were used for that house are irreplaceable. They're first growth. Today we're bringing in fast growth wood that doesn't last as well. We're using plastics. We're not using what this house was originally made of, which you can't buy today. That wood is valuable. So it really is wonderful to hear that you're willing to share that with someone. Now, I have history of this situation in that my husband and I rescued an historic structure that the owner, who didn't want anymore, moved onto our property. And if anybody wants to move any portion of that structure that we're talking about, maybe you could open your heart to helping them with the expense of it. It's just a suggestion. It certainly made a difference for us, and now we're restoring it, and it's an iconic piece of history for the Cape. So I have firsthand experience of what that's about, and so hopefully, and flaking, which is what you were discussing before, is also an opportunity. By the way, I know people to call. So I'm sure people on the Historic Commission, Bob Kelly especially, probably knows some people, and Sam, but you certainly can contact me, Ellen Briggs, at it's Ellen at protectourpast.org, simple to remember. And I can give you names of people who will take those pieces and restore them and place them in other homes that will be valued. So FYI that. That it's very capey. I'm glad you have elements that reflect that, absolutely. As to the size, it is big, and that's not capey. That's new, that's Northampton's type of thing. And that's your choice, it's your property, I get that. But you did mention that you had all this land to fill, and I'm like, well, what about trees and flowers and gardens and all that, which actually happens to be our situation. We have a relatively small Cape house, and we have a large piece of property, and we just enjoy developing it with gardens. Again, that's your choice. I'm just offering up perspectives. I want to lastly pretty much say end with a quote. But first, again, I want to thank you all for being on top of this, for digging up the history and pointing it out to the owner, and I certainly appreciate the willingness to learn the history and preserve it on all of your parts. So, and again, if I can be of any help that way, let me know. But here's a quote I'd like you all to just remember. It's by John Sawhill. And it is, in the end, our society will be defined not only by what we create, but what we refuse to destroy. So I just want you to think about it. And again, kudos to you all for all the good work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Briggs. Bob?
I have a comment. Thank you, Ellen. I did want to make a point about the old growth. What Ms. Briggs said is absolutely true. My house is 1839, and original windows in it. To replace those windows, there's no guarantee beyond 25 years. Okay, and it's the difference between the density of the wood that was used in the construction of these old houses. I suppose you could still find this in Maine, Canada, but it's a big deal that when we talk about preservation, that the wood is worthy of preservation because it has stood up all this time. That's my comment.
She was nice enough to come to the meeting. I think I should address her questions. I don't even like the people in the Hamptons, okay? And I will definitely, and I promise her that it will not be Hamptonite, and probably won't. I'll make it as capey as I can make it. In regard to knowing beforehand, which I thought was a great question, when I went after this property, and then I pulled away from this property, and then I came back to it because of the view and some other things. I said, okay, I'll undertake this. I know it's going to be a lot of work. I asked the realtors. The realtors came back to me. I said, it's not an historical area, blah, 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 blah. And excuse my ignorance for not knowing if the house is in the 1950s. To me, it looked like a 1950s house, or 60s house, 50s house, really. And it was just old. That's how I looked at it when I first looked at it. And when they told me it wasn't in historic, which the committee knows. I said, okay, it wasn't on a registry. I had Chris check with the, somebody in the town. And I said, okay, I'm free to try to make an offer on the house. So that's what happened there. And if I had found out that there was historical significance, I would not be in this deal. And you may not have ended up with a guy as cooperative, because there are some real beauties out there. So thank you for coming and thank you for asking those questions, Ms. Briggs. And we will be calling you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Karen?
I just want to make note for Mrs. Briggs, and thank you very much for tuning in today and your comments, and we'll be in touch very soon. But I wanted to let you know the commission is working on increasing education around letting folks know that a property is historic. And we do have a good process here at Town Hall. When a property comes in and the building department is notified with plans that there's a proposed demolition or a proposed project of some kind, they are very much in touch with the Historic Commission. So.
Now, this may be strange, but I'll be a reference, a good one. Board.
Good man. Any other comments from the public? I don't see anybody else in the waiting room. So at this stage, at 3 minutes to 11, I am closing the public hearing. So are we closed?
Well, you've closed the public hearing.
Okay.
So seeing as there's no further comments from the public,
Mhm.
either in favor, there was someone in the audience, I think they may have left.
Yes.
So that would move you to your next item, just discussion,
Mhm.
and you guys can decide how to proceed. Some of the things I've heard,
Mhm.
and I know that Bob was kind enough to draft a report that was included with a recommendation from his point of view in your packet, and that's been shared with the applicant. Maybe what you want to do is schedule a site visit. I can do my best to coordinate with Sarah Corgiff to see that she's able to attend, and we can go out and look there. There's no, I know that the agenda says, and this is up to you guys, there's a possible vote on invoking, the demolition delay. I think that you have 10 days from the closing of the public hearing to make that decision, so that if you wanted to go out to the site and see what there is to see, and then come back into an open meeting, that you can do that.
Thank you. Sam?
Based on Karen's comments and what we've discussed today, I would like to propose that we do not invoke anything involving either invoke or not invoke the demolition delay until we have scheduled the follow-up site visit and have gotten a second look at the property. And I think it would be pertinent to not make a decision until then.
So we have such motion. Comments on the motion? Bob?
Yeah, one comment. I think if we are going to go out and look at it, we should have maybe one of Miss Briggs' references come with us.
That's a great suggestion.
All right, so that we can get it all taken care of.
So the motion has been modified to add that comment, to have Ms. Briggs recommend a reference. Any other discussion on the motion?
So
I have
the motion is,
Motion is to not make any decision on a demolition delay at this stage until we schedule a site visit. And as Bob has suggested, that when we do that, that we request a preservationist to attend that meeting.
I just wanted
Lisa?
to add that, yes, that Ben just said that Ms. Briggs said she'd like to be there
Excellent.
in the chat.
Perfect.
Okay.
So if there's no other conversation, I'm looking for a second.
I second.
and that was Sam, did Sam make that
Sam
motion
made
then?
the motion.
Okay.
modified by Bob, seconded by Bob. All those in favor? Melanie?
I'm hesitant because it seems to me that we've made a decision in a way, but
We,
no, the information is such that what's not decided would be more of a negotiation with the owner and the contractor about who's paying for what in terms of moving what we've already suggested needs to be moved.
well, thank you, Melanie, but I think after our meeting where we look more closely at the property and at what possibly can happen, and with Ms. Briggs there, we can get more information relative to that. So we have not made a decision. We have decided to accumulate more information and to go back out with that as our view. So,
George, may I say something?
sure.
My concern with this is that delaying this, I'd like to have something hat in hand, number one. So I can go back to the bank and say, hey, look, we're going to do this. And the time period allowing you to get that out of there, I have no problem with it. But a 6-month delay is going to be crazy. My concern is bringing somebody else outside of the board in there before I'm allowed to demo, and they have another opinion on something that may sway the board. I was in construction myself at a different phase. And when you bring other people in, opinions are like many people, and you say, well, what about this? Oh, what about this? And what about that? I don't see this as a positive for me. I see it as a detriment. And I apologize for looking at it like that, but the more opinions we get, I see the more delay I'm going to get and handed, and it's going to be a problem.
Bob?
Can I change the motion?
So
I vote on the
request,
floor, so you'd have to ask Sam to, so you have a motion on the floor, you have a second, you're having discussion right now. And so if you want to kind of you could ask Sam to reconsider his motion.
I think I understand where you're coming from. I do.
Sam, I'd rather have the negotiation with me, although I'm allowed to demo, because the house has got to come down. And if you needed more time to do this or needed more time to do that, I think you know me well enough now that I'm not gonna back up and say, it's too bad. I'm not gonna do that. I just don't want to be. I'm afraid with more opinions becomes more time for me.
I think I do not have experience I admire old houses. I look at them. I know some of the construction techniques, but I am not an expert. I do not feel comfortable making a decision without having somebody a little bit more experienced, like Ms. Briggs has proposed, coming to kind of not come as a opinionated somebody or other, but more as an advisor. I feel like negotiations can still happen. I don't feel like things will get held up extensively, but I do not feel comfortable making a decision regarding the demolition delay until we have had this further discussion with a
Can you
proposed
vote
expert.
with no delay, but negotiate with me on an affidavit or something on the side saying, giving you enough time to do what you want to do? I just don't want to be held. I'm more petrified that somebody's going to say something outside of this board who, again, an opinion, and then it's going to be held up. I mean, the house has got to come down. All right. And it's got to come down. I'm aware, you're aware, we've talked about it in a public forum, that something's got to be done with a certain section of it. I'm agreeable to it.
The way I look
And
at
holding
it,
up the vote, I think, I don't think it's really that fair to me.
the way I look at it is we could make the vote to impose the delay today.
True.
Or we could, and who knows, we could vote to impose it and make you wait 6 months. We could choose not to impose it. Or we could wait, what is it, the maximum 10 days after the meeting, this meeting has adjourned, and then have another discussion and choose to impose it or not to impose it. So right now, basically what we're asking you for is 10 days to allow us to gather some more information to make a more educated decision. And that could be, and I can't say, I don't think anybody can say it's like the flip of a coin. If I flip a quarter right now, is it heads or tails? You could give a good guess. You might be wrong. You might be right. So I think it's only fair to wait until we have a little bit more information. And at the same time, we're not imposing the delay right now. We're not saying you need to wait 6 months. We're saying you need to wait 10 days.
It's in the bylaw. I think it states that we have up to 10 days to make the vote.
So he did a good job explaining it.
Aaron?
So I just want to reiterate, there's 10 days to make the decision, but
Sure.
I don't, the way I read the bylaw, we can confirm with council if we need to. It's not a all or nothing, all being 180 days. There's somewhere in between. So there's a provision in the bylaw, it's in section G.
Okay.
It's just that the commission's satisfied there's no reasonable likelihood that either the owner or some other person or group is willing to purchase, preserve, rehabilitate, restore such building. And I think that's the negotiation that's being discussed. They want to, I think what I hear the board saying, the commission saying, is you'd like to hear from an expert, and it could be Ms. Briggs, it could be, I'd like to reach out to her and get some names of actual builders. I don't know if she's an actual builder or not. To kind of have them on site, have them go
That was
back to
kinda
that
my
discussion with
point,
Chris.
yeah.
But then I think it's up to the commission in their deliberation to say, and how long do we expect you to advertise the availability of these things for? You can't expect everybody to, come and pick it up in a week, something like
It's like
that.
selling a car, unless it's.
Vetted.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not like a car company puts well, today it might be with the shortage of everything.
different.
But if you put up a car for sale, say you were going to put up your car on Craigslist, you might get a call tomorrow and the guy will say, okay, I'll write you a check $5,000 right here. Let's go.
Mm.
Or it could be weeks or months before you finally get rid of the car and price drop and this, that, and the other thing. There's a lot of schools of thought on this.
Sam, you did a good job explaining to me, and I agree with you. I do. 10 days, I hear, you did a good job. I'd be more comfortable though if you were getting somebody out there that could say, oh yeah, I can take this apart. Like, that was a good point. I can take this apart and do that. That's more constructive to me than having somebody come out who's got passionate feelings about historical,
We could ask Miss Briggs to bring or to recommend somebody who is not necessarily into preserving the building as it sits, but more somebody who can disassemble and preserve it in its
I love it.
parts.
I love it.
We can ask her, request that specifically. from
That
her.
makes me much more comfortable.
May I add, I am going away Sunday for a week. So I'm only available today, tomorrow, and Saturday within the 10 days.
And we'd have to, so the way I read 10 is 10 business days.
Oh, okay.
So, what we have to do is advertise the site visit. So we need at least, and now we have like this calculus of meeting schedule and seeing who can make it, when we can make it, and we still have to post it 48 hours
Thank you.
in advance.
Okay.
But, so maybe what we can do if we get there is take Chris's availability into consideration, but you're still really in the discussion of the original motion that Sam made, and I don't know if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think Bob had more to say.
I withdraw.
Oh, okay. Or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sam, thank you.
So we have a motion, seconded, and all those in favor, Melanie,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
George, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
If we have no more business, I would like to have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Seconded by Sam. And the meeting is closed at 10 past 11.